I'm Valerie Niemiec, and I do truly appreciate for this talk tonight. Let's see if I can get my electronics going. There we go. Okay, so I am both confounded and amused when I hear Don Reamer refer to graduates of Lawrence Tech who followed an entrepreneurial journey, calling us legends. Because if you are an entrepreneur, you very much more commonly consider yourself to be a myth. And the whole life that you're leading is one that unfolds before you. And when you're having a bad day, you feel like you're caught in a dark forest surrounded by haunted trees with creeping things that are coming out to get you. You don't know how you got in there, and you don't know how you're going to get out. And then when a day is going great, when the sales are coming in and the investors are happy, you feel like you're in a euphoric fairy tale and that you're destined for a happy ending. And the funny thing is that a lot of times both of those extremes happen within the same day. So I really can't imagine being anything but an entrepreneur. I don't work for anyone, and no one tells me what to do. And that's really scary because then I'm the one telling me what to do, and that's rarely good. So what's interesting when you're an entrepreneur is that you're never done. You never, at the end of your workday, have someone saying, wow, great job, you can go home now. Instead, even though you may have finished some things, there are so many things that you haven't gotten done that the work really never ends. And you do work 7 days a week, whether you're actually at the office or whether you're just thinking about work. And there's always a whole lot of work to be doing. Your life is defined by goals, gates, watershed moments, highs and lows. It's a very emotional and personal journey. You constantly fail. My goodness, I mean, I constantly fail, constantly second guess myself, but on the horizon is this bright light that just keeps pulling you toward it, this great thing that you want to accomplish, and that's what keeps you going as an entrepreneur. I've had a number of entrepreneurial experiences. I've got a really exciting one now. So first I'm going to lead you through how I got there. So I had truly the coolest childhood ever. My father and mother, when they got married, decided to move to this very remote farm in that wasteland of Ohio. And they moved to this farm. To give you a sense of how remote it was, I lived 23 miles from my high school, and my best friend lived 45 miles away from me on the opposite corner of the school district. When you think about how far away 45 miles is from here, that was the size of my school district, and there were only 93 kids in my graduating class. So we were isolated out there because my parents wanted to raise us in an environment where they had control over the environment instead of us being raised by whatever the evil forces were that they were worried about. But anyway, my father was an inventor, and we had a working farm for my brothers and the experience of having a working farm and building that work ethic. And then my father had this really extensive lab. And so in our barn, we had virtually every kind of animal that you can have on a farm. And then the other side of it was all this stuff that he used for tinkering. I mean, just pieces, parts of just what looked to us, of course, like junk. But the guy could build anything out of anything. And he's degreed in chemistry, physics, and mathematics. And he has been inventing for a long time. In this lab that he had everything secretly marked in jars. He used these mason jars, and they all had these secret codes on them, which I guess in retrospect were probably chemical symbols, because I do remember taking a plate of food out one time, and he reached into a jar and put this magical stuff called NaCl on his food, and I thought he was going to die. But anyway, so it was very interesting, and he actually he's got over 130 different patents, and he invented, I was just taking my daughter for a tour of one of the labs, and she saw one of my dad's patents in your lab. He invented zip ties. So those things that look like half a zipper with the loop on it, you know what I'm talking about, zip ties? They're used for handcuffs now. We all good? Okay, so that was one of his patents. He doesn't have the patent anymore because it expired, but it was originally an automotive application, and he did a lot of things for automotive applications. In fact, he invented the wood grain on the sides of station wagons. Yes? And the wood grain around the instrument panel on the dashboard of your car. And he was the world's largest manufacturer of mud flaps at one time, making those, not the black mud flaps, not the rubber ones, but the white ones that had, at the time, some people of my generation, Yosemite Sam on them, and Bugs Bunny, and those are his. So he was he invented those or developed those mud flaps. And yeah, so that was Dad. So it was a really interesting way to grow up. We had this working farm. And what was interesting was, got to see where my slides are coming in here with my story. So hold on, bear with me here for a second. Okay, so great. Okay, so anyway, so really interesting way to grow up. He also invented the first product that you would think of as Trex. So you're familiar with the decking product called Trex. Well, when he invented this, it was the first material like that was a plank that could be developed in any length, that didn't rot, didn't break, had incredible strength, all this stuff. And the Army Corps of Engineers came to him, the US Army Corps of Engineers came to him and wanted to purchase all of his production capacity. And he didn't want to do that. And then they demanded that he purchase his production capacity. And then they used the actual eminent domain to take his company. And so they took his technology and didn't exclude him from using it, but they took it and started producing this planking, and they were using it for dams and trucks, beds of trucks, and dikes and dams is what they were using this for, seawalls. And the problem was that they did not protect the patent. So my dad had this incredible patent, and the government basically let it go and let anyone take his patent. So throughout this discussion, I'm hoping to help you with some of the lessons. I know that some of you have a paper you have to write, you poor people. So I have a lot of slides in here, though, with lots of points that you can use to fill up that paper. So some of the lessons that I learned from Dad here are about stages of entrepreneurship. So my father was the inventor kind of entrepreneur in the first stage of development. So he loved to do all that experimentation and all that major failure of, hey, this worked, but always wanting to know why something did or didn't work. And a lot of times his failures actually intrigued him more than the successes that he was actually aiming for. So he was one of those inventors who took things through to proof of concept. Then the next part, of course, in entrepreneurship is proof of market. Is there anybody out there who's really going to buy it? That's the piece I love, is getting out there into the market, taking this out there and finding out what people really, really want, and how can we position it, and how can we change it, and how do you really get it out there to be something that is consumed. And then there's the next part of the entrepreneurial solution there, which is building a sustainable company, which my husband fortunately has the skill set to do. So he's done a number of turnarounds, and that's the piece that he likes out of it. So between the three of us, we kind of have a good thing going there. Now, one of my dad's lessons, he could fail and fail and fail and fail, but he really believed that you could change the world through inventions and being an entrepreneur. And that is the cool thing about this entrepreneurial journey that you're probably, hopefully, all going to be on at some point in your career. That even though it kind of seems like everything's been developed, I mean, really, look at us now, really how much more can be out there. Dad always believed that there was more and more and more. And so he just kept pursuing and he just kept developing new things. As I said, he was a big one on trying to understand his failures, always going and going, and this really important lesson of protecting your intellectual property. That's a huge thing. So a lot of times Dad will be doing things that he has no intention of taking to market, yet he will patent them just so he can keep using his own technology. He actually developed something else after this planking where he shared it with other people because it wasn't something he was taking to market, it was a component of something else, and somebody else patented it, so then he couldn't use it anymore for his own development. So that protecting your intellectual property was a really important thing. So when I was on the farm, we had this working farm with all these fields, and then they did this thing where, so we had corn and soybeans and all that stuff, so I could drive a tractor really good. And then they got into this like vegetable farming with tomatoes and cucumbers and green peppers, so you work out in the field doing that. And then we had all of these animals that always had to be taken care of all the time too. And it's a funny thing because from a work ethic perspective, you have never experienced anything until you were on a farm, and those animals are the highest priority. Like you wake up on Christmas morning, Santa Claus has been there, but you can't open anything because you have to go out and do your chores first. I mean, it's really incredible that every morning we had to get up truly before the crack of dawn and get out there and do the chores and take care of all that. Now, the one way I could get out of feeding the animals or doing my chores, and again, I had brothers, and that was kind of boys' work back then, was if I would study. If I was studying, I didn't have to do chores. So if you ever think that you don't want to study, I want you guys to think about going out into a chicken coop that is full of noisy, dusty, smelly chickens, and you have to put like a Kevlar band on your arm and stick your hand under those chickens and pull those eggs out while they peck at you and peck at any part of you that they can possibly get access to. And I had the choice of doing that or studying. So I studied, and I studied a whole lot. And what was really cool was back then, this must have been before Princeton was developed. I don't know, but there weren't SAT and ACT books and classes and things like that. And there certainly weren't any in Ohio, or in that part of Ohio. So studying for those standardized tests was really, in fact, I don't even think the ACT existed back then. But anyway, anyway, I kept studying and finding anything I could possibly do to study. And World Book Encyclopedia, which you guys probably have never heard of, it had this incredible set of what would now be kind of SAT bookish sort of stuff that went along with their encyclopedia. So I studied all that, and I did It Pays to Enrich Your Word Power out of Reader's Digest magazine. And the funny thing was that when I took my SATs, I got a perfect score. And I got a perfect score in a year where only 2 people in the country got a perfect score. And I was one of them. So it had nothing to do with being smart. I absolutely assure you, it had nothing to do with being smart. It only had to do with sticking my hand under chicken butts, okay? So that's how I got a perfect score in the SAT. But what's cool is that when you get a perfect score in your SAT and you're from a farm in Ohio, you are like geographically so unique for having to do that I got accepted to college everywhere. So I started right after I graduated from high school. I went to Harvard. And it was really interesting because I show up at Harvard in the clothes that my mother made me. It was really great. So I am this totally backward girl, astoundingly backward. And these people at Harvard absolutely chewed me up and spit me out. It was so bad. So I left there and went to George Washington University, much better experience. I was majoring in statistics, and they let one undergrad stat student a year participate with the Warren Commission, because the head of statistics for the Warren Commission was the head statistician at George Washington University. So I was that student. So I got to be in on all these inside meetings with the senators and the Warren Commission, things that were closed. I got to sit in on, trying to figure out how many shooters there were in the Kennedy shooting. So at the end of that year, very cool college year though, some idiot lit my dormitory on fire by putting charcoal briquettes on all the doors in my hall and the adjoining hall and lighting it on the 5th floor of a 9-story building. And I got out with my life, barely, and my roommate ended up jumping 5 stories out of her window in the concrete in his wheelchair for the rest of her life. So after that, I had really had enough of the East Coast and came back to the nice, safe Midwest and went to University of Michigan and got a degree in computer science. So that's just a little bit of background there of how I got to actually Lawrence Tech. Now, where are we? So we've learned that we need to study hard. Okay, here we go. So after I graduated from college with a computer science degree, I had some really weird job offers. And one of them was to go to work for the Society of Manufacturing Engineers in Dearborn with this phenomenal job, like this management job. And I was a woman, which back then women were never in management. And it was managing a whole bunch of men who were much older than me. And wow, this was really an incredible opportunity. So like an idiot, I took it. And what it was the affirmative action thing. Like you hear about affirmative action a lot associated with race. Well, back then it was about gender. And they had to hire a woman. And apparently I was the first woman that walked in with a sciences degree. And so at like 21, they put me in charge of these 7 men who were ages, I don't know, 30 to 49. I know the oldest was 49. And those guys chewed me up and spit me out. It was unbelievable how bad the experience was. But I kept, work ethic girl here, kept going in and working on the weekends and trying to, get ahead of it. And the only other person at the Society of Manufacturing Engineers who worked on weekends was the director. So one day he wanders down to wonder who else's car is in the parking lot, finds me, takes me under his wing. He was like 100 years old. I mean, just the greatest guy in the world. But he took me under his wing and taught me all this stuff about how to handle these guys, and no one knew he was talking to me. So it was like our little secret that I could ask him for help on all these issues, and he never interceded from his role up there, but he sure helped me with all that. So when you have the opportunity, stick with things and get help. Find people who can help you through your challenges. And ingratiate yourself with as many mentors as you can find out there. So you have really got to find mentors in your life. Trying to think if I'm missing many things here. Okay, so I have this phenomenal mentor at Society of Manufacturing Engineers, and that's how I ended up at Lawrence Tech, because sciences degree in computer science, but that is nothing like what I was doing at the plant floor stuff in manufacturing. Had no clue what I was doing. So I tried to figure out, okay, how can I, understand what I'm doing? So I came up to Lawrence Tech and had this phenomenal experience of people who were actually willing to help me create my own degree, my own path of study. I couldn't believe it, because coming from a big box school, then to coming to a school like Lawrence Tech was a completely different thing, because when I got here, they were helping me pick classes that were what I really wanted to learn. And at that point, it was night school, and it was astounding, because I had had this experience before of, this is the program, you will attend these classes in this order, and you'll do it in a room with 300 people in it. So coming to Lawrence Tech was completely different. My professors knew my name. That had never happened to me when I was at U of M. And when I needed help, the professors helped me. At U of M, it was all these teaching assistants, completely different again. So part of what I'm talking about tonight is I want to tell you guys you made a great choice coming to Lawrence Tech. So that's another thing I want to affirm in my speech here. But had a great experience at Lawrence Tech. Came in, and at the time we were creating a manufacturing engineering degree for me, because and we were putting together all these unique compilation of classes. And we were going to come up with this new degree, but then I ended up taking a bunch of business classes as well. I got into chemistry with Dr. Christ, who was here then, and some physics classes, and it was really great. So somehow we cobbled together a second degree. It's hilarious that Don is very kind saying I have a BS-BA from '94, but actually it was '84. And I'm not even sure it was a BA, it's BS something. So anyway, but when I was at SME, I got recruited away by a fellow named George P. Johnson, and he was the largest exhibit manufacturer in exhibit house, and ran these huge trade shows around the country. And he said if I could come up with a unique idea for a trade show, that he would fund me in my own company. So I go to work for George, come up with this idea of a physical fitness and health show, because it was a bigger age on the boat. So I run a show at Cobo Hall, and it goes really great, and George dies. Okay, so suddenly I am without a company, but a really interesting thing happened to me. And I had something, I had that, instead of who do you want to work with, I had don't work with idiots as my bullet, because what I found in working with people who were in this industry, they were really different than sciences people. So when you're working with like ex-pro football players who run fitness centers now, and you're working with people who run or were running, who did massages and were doing health food things, they're really different than those of you in the room. I mean, it's different kind of thinking. So when you're thinking about what you want to do, you think about who you want to work with. That was something that really surprised me. And then the last thing is with losing George, I did not have a contingency plan, so there I was. After that, I went to work at General Motors, though, right away, running a factory floor technology exhibit that they took through the United States and through Europe. So they sent me traveling everywhere, which is really cool, because I'd already done a lot of traveling in the States, but then they sent me to Europe for 17 weeks. So I really cannot encourage you enough that if you have the opportunity to travel, grab it. Under whatever circumstance it is, get out of the country. Just go and get that experience, because it is nothing like you can imagine when you're really there and really in the trenches. It's really something. You need to learn to appreciate and work with other cultures. We are global, and people say that other cultures, like they make these generalizations like Haitians are corrupt, which just makes me absolutely crazy. And Haitians, I guess, you know, in a way, if you just compare apples to apples, that if you look at the way we do business here, they don't do it that way, and so people assume it's corrupt. It's not corrupt, it's different. And you can't make judgments about these other cultures and the way they're working just by comparing them to us. You have to look at them for what works in their country and what their value system is. And you get there by traveling and meeting the people and getting in there. You don't be an ugly American. That's easy. Okay, then I, from there, went to work for a company called National Tech Team, which is in Dearborn. And they, well, actually, when I was on this doing this thing for General Motors, I was a contractor through a consulting company, and went to work. It was called AFCC, which was another effing consulting company, but they called it American Financial Consulting Company, but the real name was not that. And so that guy was a great entrepreneur. He was a great sense of humor. But then I went to work for Dr. Coiro at National Tech Team, and he's a dentist, and he's an incredible entrepreneur because he's a dentist who ran a help desk company. And when we joined, well, actually, he got the idea to do this by working in somebody's mouth who was a Ford executive saying, we need help desks. And you know, Bill Coiro says, wow, yeah, okay, I can do that. So he starts a company and takes it up. We had 40 employees when I got there. And my husband, actually, we were married at that point, and he and I came in as the office of the president with me running sales and him running operations. And we took the company from 40 employees to 1,500 employees in 6 years. We were a 40-cent stock when we started. We ended up at $38, $40 a share. Third highest performing stock on the NASDAQ stock exchange in 1997. We just absolutely hit it out of the park. It was really great. And what we did was take this little entrepreneurial kernel that Dr. Coiro had and took it to companies like to Microsoft and to Intel and to WordPerfect and Shiva and all these different companies and said, hey, if we're doing Ford's help desk, we can do your help desk. And we showed them a business model where that all made sense. And we were on the front page of the technology section of the Wall Street Journal. We were Crane's Top 40 Under 40. It was a great, great run. Very fun, and learned a lot of really cool things. And what I learned from these guys and this dentist working in somebody's mouth was to network. Network all the time, every way you can. The best networker I've seen in last years is actually Don Stevens, who Don Reamer just mentioned. And Don Stevens is this extraordinary networker, and he's really cool because not only did he develop his own thing, so he's got that first step in the entrepreneurial path, but he also hits the ground in Haiti, and the guy is a machine. He is on his phone talking to everybody, networking with everybody, knows everybody, really amazing. So that is a very, very critical part of being an entrepreneur, is networking. Okay, so I went on the mommy track. My husband did a couple of turnaround companies, and 3 years ago, Dad said, yes, he did. He said he had an invention that we are calling Safe Homes. And what he did was he had gone on a church mission trip to Haiti and seen that they had nowhere to live. And this was 10 years ago he'd been on this mission trip to Haiti. He saw they had nowhere to live. They were living in things leaned against other things. And he thought, man, there's got to be a better way. So he came up with this building system that uses these concrete tiles that look like this. And this is a mold that they're built in. And these concrete tiles are dry stacked like Lego blocks. They're dry stacked, and these connectors go in between. So by dry stacked, I mean there's no mortar. And you stack the block, and you slide a connector, you stack another block, and you slide a connector, and that's how they all go together. So he did this. He designed it just so indigenous populations could build it. But a really cool thing happened when he went to test it. It turned out it was really, really strong. Cat 5 hurricane, earthquake motion. Some people came from Iraq and did tests, and they said it was 8.0 earthquake proof, and F3 tornado, which is highest you could test for at the time. So really cool, really great thing. So Dad says, wow, this is great. I'm going to change the world, take this to market. And FEMA hears about it. And my dad, who was so afraid of what had happened and so mad about what had happened with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, just put it in a box and packed it away. Well, now Dad's 82, and he thinks it's time to get this really great thing out and some other inventions that he's got. And so he asked Brian and I if we would take this to market and really see what we could do with it. So manufactured and erected by indigenous labor. The other big thing is that we make it look like local architecture. So when you're rebuilding a country or building in a country, there are lots of ways you can build in a country, right? Lots of different kind of buildings you can do. They want buildings that look like their buildings. They want something that looks like the house they lost in the storm. But they want it to be stronger. So these houses, and I'll show you some photos here, but the houses have a rough shell inside, but then we have all these attachment points that you can put any kind of gingerbread you want to on them and make them look like just about anything, except we can't do round. We cannot do round. So here are some of our buildings. The ones in the upper left is a subdivision that we have in Belize. So Dad went down and lived in Belize for 2 years and worked with local people to figure out how to do this. And then the house on the right is one that's in Puerto Rico. And right now we have a contract to build 100 houses outside of Mayahuez, Puerto Rico, which is on the west coast. And the house in the bottom left is a rendering that we did for the state of Louisiana. After Katrina, the head of the reconstruction process, Jim Landry, was the head of economic development for the state of Louisiana. And he had 150 different kinds of construction materials and ideas in this huge warehouse. And we went in with this one. He's a PhD in physics. And when my dad explained this building system to him, he publicly said that we were the #1 rebuilding system for the state of Louisiana. There are marketing reasons why that doesn't work, because when all that money went to Louisiana, it went to individuals. So you have to actually sell your houses to individuals to build in Louisiana. And our business model is one where we have to bring a plant in and make those tiles. So we have to have a size going. We have to have some inertia when we get in there. So, so our business model is a little different. I'll talk about that in a minute. So we focus on housing solutions for disaster recovery and sustainable communities. So disaster recovery obviously is going in after a hurricane or an earthquake, and rebuilding. We obviously can build homes right the first time, but we focus on job creation. So a big thing is that when you've lost your houses, you know, and they've lost their places of work and all that, people need jobs. So there are all these companies that bring in these pre-manufactured solutions and erect them with cranes and engineers. That does nothing for these countries. That doesn't help them get out of this incredible cycle of loss that they're in. So when we come in, we put a plant in, we hire indigenous populations to put the concrete into, in fact, in Haiti, we hire them to actually mix the concrete in small batches and put it in the molds. They, you know, are the ones moving the molds, they're taking the tiles out of the molds, and then they're actually building the houses. So these houses are incredibly easy to build. They, being dry stacked, you just literally lift the tile into place and slide the connector, and if you can do a Lego Bionicle, you can build one of these. You don't have to be able to read, you don't need an engineering degree, you don't even have to have any manufacturing experience or know how to use any tools. Our company is a for-profit social entrepreneurship, which is the cool thing to be when you're in your 50s, that after you've made it, then you go give it back. But a social entrepreneurship is one that is a for-profit company, but we're here to do good while we're doing well, I think is the little song that goes there. So this is how the house works. It's a, foundation. And then actually I have a tile here for you, which is good, in a mold, and so you can kind of see some of the connectors on the upper right there. The guy right there taking the tile off there was sent by the government of the Dominican Republic to our plant in Arkansas, and he wanted to be able to show the Dominicans how easy these houses were to build. So he's out there, you know, he's building, you know, setting the blocks in place and whatever, and they're videotaping it. And then they said, well, hey, how about you build the house so we can, you know, show a woman building the house to show how easy it is. So I'm like, cool. So the guys from the plant come out, and we take a little break, and the guys from the plant come out, and they set all these tiles. These are 50-pound tiles. So if anybody wants to, you know, play catch with this, this is not, I mean, these are 50-pound tiles. You got to know how to lift them, and you gotta, you know, really want to do it. Past the first few. So anyway, so the guys get it totally set up for me and get all the connectors kind of laid out so any idiot can do it. And they turn on the camera, and I go out there, and I'm lifting these tiles into place. And it's really great, and they're videotaping the whole thing. And everything's done, and the guys leave, and great visit, all this stuff. And so they posted it on YouTube. And it had this Spanish overfeed on, dubbed over. And I called our director in Puerto Rico, of course speaks Spanish, and have him translate for me while he and I are both listening to it. So he's telling me, oh, they're saying all these great things about it. It's really cool. It's really going to change the way they build houses. Because their idea in the Dominican is that they have, like, at just one sugarcane plantation, they have 10,000 workers there, 10,000 men who are out, hacking away the sugarcane in the fields. And every 3 to 5 years, when a hurricane comes through, it blows down all their houses, because their houses are made out of dried sugarcane stalks. So nobody comes to work until they rebuild their houses. So it's terrible for the sugarcane plantations. So what they wanted to do was show that a woman could build these houses. So they were going to have, the idea is that they would have the plant, and the women would build these houses while the men are, doing the real work, apparently, in the fields. So they wanted it, so that was the idea with the women. So we're still working with them on that. But the funny thing was, on this video, as we're going through it, my guy is doing his translation, and all at once he stops translating. And then a couple sentences later, he picks up the translation again. And I'm like, Jorge, wait, what did they say back there? Oh, nothing. No, let's rewind. What did they say? So I force and make him say, what they said was, if an old blonde American woman can build these houses, anyone can. So you have no idea, when you're brushed with reality TV, is them outing you as the lowest common denominator of spoiled, soft weakling. I mean, that was just like, but anyway, so that's my good luck with the Dominicans. Here's a picture of an operating plant. You can see the tile molds going down there full of concrete, and then constructing a wall. When we build, so foundation is the only tricky part of the house. Obviously, you can't build a Lego house on a foundation that's not dimensioned, true, level, and flat. Dimension something, square, level, and flat. So that you do really have to know what you're doing for that part. But the rest of it is you're just setting those blocks up there and tapping them in place with a rubber mallet. And then for the roof, we use metal bar joists and a pan that goes on there, and you do a 3-inch concrete pour, 3 to 4-inch concrete pour in the pan. And they can have a floor or not have a floor. It's not part of the structure. It doesn't matter. Anyway, but the cool thing about the houses is that because they're dry stacked, you can build the house all the way up. Until you pour that roof, you can take the whole thing completely down. So what's neat for us is that for training people in a plant, we can build them in the privacy of our own plant and really train to make sure that everybody knows how those connectors and things go in. And then we can send those people out as supervisors into the field, and they can teach people how to do it. And we don't have to learn anything out in the open where it could potentially be embarrassing. So yeah, that's the houses. Okay, so let me see what brilliant things I was going to say about this. Yeah, we got all that. Okay. All right, so our technology, I think I kind of better keep going faster here. We talked about it. So we've got houses in Belize, Puerto Rico, and Arkansas, of all places. They look like local architecture, attachment points. Yeah, okay, our plants can be any size. The structures can be kind of any size as well. But one important thing is that we do have to sell to large, our market strategy is that we have to get large sales. So we sell to governments and aid organizations in big contracts that are consuming them in quantities of 100 houses or more. And a single line in a plant can kick out about 2,000 tiles a day, one every 12 seconds. And that's enough to build an 800 square foot house, just to give you an idea, which in Caribbean standards is really huge. So that's that. Our company history is proof of concept, was in Belize, refined in Arkansas, Puerto Rico. We've got a $7 million contract in Puerto Rico. We were in this international competition in Haiti, which I told you about, and we were one of the finalists selected that are building these 240,000 homes. Our 2011 goals were to get our long-term financing in place, open our initial markets, and develop our best business practices. We've had a little distraction on that. My father, who is aging, is 82 or 3, it has unbelievable other inventions that he has either started a patent or hasn't even started a patent yet, but he's got all these prototypes, and so he has us helping him finish some of those things. One of them is a water purification system that can be included in the house with a cistern that actually can be built inside the walls of the house, and it's he calls it the soul locator. It's a Frisian solar lens that follows the sun. And then another one is a septic system that actually can also be embedded in the wall of a house that has no effluent that needs to go into a septic field of any kind. At our farm in Ohio, he's had it there for 5 years. It's the only septic system in the farm. It is 100% above ground. There is no septic field at all. And he actually goes out there and turns a tap and runs water into a Dixie cup and drinks it. And that is the effluent from his septic system. So it's pretty amazing, and it completely negates that point of perking and, you know, I'm not drinking the water. Pardon?
House that's the
yes, it's the house, right? So they're residential septic systems.
Yeah.
So it's a residential septic system. So we're integrating that into these houses as well, because obviously the septic and sewer issues in these countries is a real problem. So, okay, onto it. Great. So legends, myths, and fairy tales, a Herculean journey. I'm guessing that you guys are not getting a lot of mythology classes here at Lawrence Tech. So I'm going to confiscate a famous myth here, legend, of Hercules, and use this as a way to give you some more lessons here. So if you guys don't have enough notes at the end of this about lessons, I'm sure you're going to be able to write those papers just fine. So Hercules was half god and half man. He was the strongest, fastest, smartest, and biggest of all. He was obsessive, delusional, and went temporarily insane, which is a great entrepreneurial feature, man. That's absolutely entrepreneurial. He made incredibly bad mistakes and then had to atone for them, and those are called the 12 labors of Hercules. So now I want you to plug your ears because I'm going to sing. There is a song called It's a Wonderful World by Louis Armstrong, and it goes, I hear babies cry and watch them grow. They'll learn much more than I'll ever know. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Okay, so that part of they'll learn much more than I'll ever know is why these teachers are here and why entrepreneurs come here, people come here to talk to you, because you are going to know so much more than we ever learned. And in some ways, we know more than the generation prior to us, but because they lifted us up on their shoulders, and now I'm here to lift you guys up on my shoulders and give you some of the things that I learned in my entrepreneurial journey. Okay, first thing you need to do is build a solid foundation. You guys have to get a great education and know your technology. Check that one off the list just about. I mean, you guys are definitely on the right path, in the right place, learning what you need to know. The second thing is you have to nurture your solid foundation. You have to be a great person. You have to work on your core, your spirit, your soul, your beliefs, your moral core. You have to be a really strong person to be an entrepreneur, because things are going to happen to you that really stink. You will have challenges. You will have people who say things about you. You will have competitive issues that you just can't imagine. You have to be a really good person. So I happen to have the great fortune of marrying a man with a very strong moral core, and he is my rock, my foundation. I'm very lucky in that regard, but y'all have to find it. It's absolutely critical. When you're an entrepreneur, do not be the smartest person in the room. You might be the smartest person in the room in your technology or in the space that you know, but the reality is when you're an entrepreneur, you have to know a whole lot of things, and you need a whole lot of other smart people in the room with you, and you have to make them feel smart and make them feel appreciated. So it's really important that you find that team. Surround yourself with great people. This does not say surround yourself with good people. You must surround yourself with great people. How do you find them? Number 2, you nurtured your solid foundation, which gave you a gut that knows. You need to trust your gut, and you need to find those people that you believe in and who are going to help flesh out your team. Okay, let others tell you what to do. I have every thing that I possibly succeeded in was done by reverse engineering and letting people tell me what they wanted. You go in with your solution and say, this is what I've got, and this is how other people are consuming it. How can we do it for you? That gets people talking, gets them telling you their solution for what they really, really want. If you go in and say, this is what I've got, how many do you want to buy? Forget it. They're not going to work with you. Find out what people want by asking them what they want, and then work on your solution so that it's got those features. You are the emotional barometer of your company. So who is one of the emotional barometers here? Philza. She is so incredibly upbeat, positive, enthusiastic. She is someone you want to be around all the time. Be the Philza at the company that you become, because it is really, really important that you are that guiding light at your company. If the entrepreneur, if the leader is in a bad mood, everybody feels it, and it sucks the oxygen out of the room. You have to find a way to be happy, to spin whatever is happening. By spin, I don't mean lie about it. I mean just look at it from 360 degrees, because there's got to be something positive in there. At least it's a mistake you learned from. But you have to be positive. You need to read books. There are amazing books out there on leadership, on startups, on corporate culture, on management, on finance, and these really cool guys called pitching hacks. Do you guys know about pitching hacks here? Okay, good. Okay, so the next time for a class, you have to write any kind of a business plan or presentation, Google pitching hacks. I got some screwy URL that I couldn't give you, but just Google pitching hacks, and there's a PDF out there that walks through how to do the absolute coolest, state-of-the-art business plan that is. It's just amazing. When I started doing business plans 100 years ago, they were a 30-page text-based document with no pictures in them. You don't do that now at all, as I'm sure as you know, but you do what Pitching Hacks is telling you. It's all about a new terminology called, what's your traction, what's your product market fit, who's your team. Man, it is all about your team. It used to be they were so interested in your technology, and certainly you have to pass those gates, but now it's about what's the team that you put together? Who is going to actually make this succeed? So investors are really looking for that. And Pitching Hacks will help you with those key things. And then learn from big mentors and mini mentors. I used to look at the heads of company as my mentors, at Bill Hilty at my first company, and he taught me so many more things. But now I find a lot of mini mentors who aren't necessarily people who are older than me or more experienced than me or anything, but they have something that they do really great, and one of them is Don Reamer. He has this way of getting suckers like me to come here and make presentations like this. It is really great that he can encourage and I don't know, connive people into doing things, but it's really great, and he makes you feel really good about it the whole time. You're saying, okay, yes, I'll be there, and that's a real skill to have. But anyway, there are a lot of things that you can learn from people. Find those things, figure out what's working about them, and do them yourself. Make luck, okay? I love the concept of making luck, which is thinking of how do I be in the right place at the right time and make the contacts and say the right things and take action and get my name out there, get my face out there, be well groomed. I mean, they're just things like that just getting out there and setting yourself up for success. You have to make your own luck out there in the world, managing your perception. I love the Sophia Loren quote that, she was the sexy icon from the 70s? 60s, 70s, 60s, and so Sophia Loren had this saying that sex appeal is 50% what you've got and 50% what they think you've got. So that's what managing your perception is about. You need to help people understand the you that you are and the you that you want to be. So you really need to think about that to be a successful entrepreneur. You need to be likable. If you have the absolute best product ever, people will buy it from you until the next guy comes along with a product that is just about as good as yours, but he's nice, they're going to go with him. So you really have to be all these things. It's not just about your product and how well you did developing it. You have to be the whole package when you're out there as the front of your company. You have to have thick skin because, I don't mean to be too negative, but people really do, when you're an entrepreneur, go after you. I have a problem with this. I don't like it when people are saying things that they shouldn't say and doing things they shouldn't do, and so you just have to let it go and get past it, and that's a really important part. And then my last thing is ruling the world in 20 minutes. So this is my personal philosophy that I give to you. I have a bajillion things that I have to do. And I sometimes think as a woman, I have a bajillion more than most men do, like than my husband does, because I have certain roles and responsibilities with kids and with meal planning and grocery shopping, all those other things that I have to do. And so my whole life is organized into boxes. So I have all the areas of my life, which includes all the key people in my life, but then my finances and my personal development and my house and meal planning. And, so I've got all these, like, I don't know, a dozen different boxes of these things. And in those boxes, I have goals. And every day, I look at my goals in those boxes, and some are short-term and some are long-term goals. And anyway, so I've got my whole to-do list basically built into there. And every morning, without any regard for how much it is going to absolutely be absolute misery to do the things that are on my list, I think of what are the 10 most important things I can be doing today that at the end of the day will really make a difference and really make me feel great. And I do them for 20 minutes. And I pick the worst one on the list, and I do it for 20 minutes. So I have to write a big proposal. I can't get it started. I don't know how to do it. I don't have to write a big proposal. I have to work on a proposal for 20 minutes. So I go into a place that has no electronics, there's no texting, there's no taking phone calls, there's nothing. It's your 20 minutes, and you just work on that thing. You would not believe what you can get done in 20 minutes, what you can get cleaned in 20 minutes, what you can strategize and think through in 20 minutes. It is unbelievable how 20 minutes and goal setting and keeping a balance in your life and actually doing things and staying focused can do for you. But I do it in 20 minutes, and it really, really works. So that's all I've got. And thank you for your time.
You're going to sound really not surprised, but we've got questions. We've got a little bit of time, so what questions do you have for Valerie that she could answer?
If you could sum it into one moment of failing forward, what would it be? If you could describe it. That really.
Wow, it's a great question, and there are really so many. Okay, so trusting investors who didn't come through. So having investors who signed a contract and they met all the due diligence, had the money, had everything. We're the real deal, and signing those guys, and then not coming through on the schedule that they had said they were coming through, and then all the things that fell apart after that, all the promises that money was based on, and everything worked out eventually, but that was horrible, and that was really you don't have it until you have it.
What do you think got you through that though? As far as moving forward after that?
I think denial. Yeah, sleeping a lot. Again, so great question. And really, when I have my life all boxed out there, I have balance, and I like to look at that as a chessboard where I've got all these pawns, and I'm pushing everything forward, and everything's in control. So if one of them falls off the table, I still got everything else good. And so I've got this strong core, this organized life, all these things that are going positive, and then when something bad like that happens, you got it together that you can weather it. And that's really important because, I lecture my daughter all the time on keeping her room clean, because actually having that there, walking into a neat workspace and an organized workspace when you've got huge things you have to do really makes a difference. So I really believe that having your whole life managed helps you with those hard things when they come.
Other questions? There must be a few more out there. Usually she may have explained herself extremely well or thoroughly confused you, I'm not sure. Who has a question?
How important leadership in the business that you are doing? Like, how do you use leadership to make you accomplish whatever you need it?
Okay, so he's asking me how I use leadership to accomplish what I need to in my company. So I use leadership by being that emotional barometer for one thing. I keep people in my company really excited and happy, and I spend a lot of time communicating to people out there and recognizing in other people when things are bad, I recognize in them the things that they are doing good, even though other stuff is not all going well. And that's a really important part of being a leader, inspiring everyone else to, to be pulling their weight to really get you through. And I plan the heck out of everything. I really have, the plans and the contingency plans. And that really helps. Yes?
After a really harsh review or big offset, what is your strategy from coming back from that? Do you have a specific way that you figure out how to unstress, get your mind away from that?
I've never had that happen. No. Okay, so I'm not very good at that, and my way of handling that is with a piece of paper pushing through toward the answers. I would love to run away and have a glass of wine and a distraction, a movie. And I really don't do that. I really, really get the piece of paper out and start writing and work on what all those different options are, where we can go from here. And then I look for, okay, how my team can help me and get us through it. Yes?
So as far as personal development, I just want to see, as an entrepreneur, how many books do you usually read on personal development a week or a month, or is that something that helps you a lot?
That's kind of cool. So I love that because that great moral compass that I married loves reading business books. And he is so good about telling me, wow, I read this. And so he's my Cliff Notes on a lot of books. And then he also helps me find the ones that are really relevant at the time. So he is quite the connoisseur of business books. And again, there are some really good ones now, like for you guys, Jeremy Rifkin's got a book, The Third Industrial Revolution, about what's happening, the changing energy consumption around globally, how it's being more localized and less large utilities, and I mean, phenomenal analysis, global analysis. A really important thing for you, regardless really of whatever engineering capacity you're in or architecture. So there are some books like that are incredibly relevant and showing you a real glimpse into the future and what's coming. So that's good.
I have a question. You have 2 bachelors or one?
I do.
Can you speak on, and I know for architects you kind of have to get a master's, but what do you think the relevance is of 2 degrees or a master's degree in the business world today? Yeah,
so I got the computer science degree as my degree, and I actually I got a degree at U of M. I learned things at Lawrence Tech, and so the difference there is that when I came here, I was seeking specific knowledge and information about specific topics, and then I got excited about the environment, and I met people like Dr. Chris, who pulled me into chemistry for no reason whatsoever, although now I'm glad I have it, but you kind of, so I just kind of followed that learning path just 'cause. And so I got the second degree because I had taken so many classes that somebody said, hey, you know what, if you take these 3 more classes, you can actually have a degree from Lawrence Tech. And so I was like, yeah, great, I'm happy to take those 3 more classes. So that's actually what happened, why I got a second bachelor's. I wouldn't necessarily have pursued a second bachelor's. I just kind of, I learned. So I really came here to learn, which is really different than going to school just to get that credential, get that paperwork. I learned so much more here than I did at U of M. It is unbelievable, because the environment was really learning oriented here. And you could actually talk and have dialogue. I mean, I learned things like Calc 3 in a room with 300 people in it, and a professor who spoke no English. He was Polish, and I'm Polish, so I have nothing, I mean, Polish is good, but he could not speak any English teaching Calc 3. And we had to learn from the book and these odd scrawls that he put on the board and from each other. And that's just wrong. So anyway, it wasn't how it was when I came here. I hope you don't have Calc 3 in auditoriums anymore, do you? or here at all? I wouldn't. Okay, good, not close.
I wanted to How much strategic thinking goes into what you do? You're growing your company in terms of where you are right now, where you see yourself going. I mean, do you get together with Brian? Does Brian do most of that? Do you, in a sense, seek outsiders to really develop your strategy and positioning yourself as you continue to evolve?
Yeah. So Brian is really great. In the sense that he loves these. He loves business structure. He's really into how all the different opportunities for structuring business. And in our basement, we've got these hilarious, like huge running sheets of long butcher block paper, going on the walls of all these business models that are on. I should show you a picture. I mean, it's really quite something when the kids have friends over. And so he is really into all those different kind of organizational strategies and how you can do that. My way of structuring your business is listening to the customer. So we can structure all we want on our basement walls, but you get out in front of a customer and like something really remarkable happened when we were selling these structures. So I didn't talk much about the rough shell that was in one of those pictures there, but Haiti wants to purchase the rough shells and then have the attachment points so that people can put their own sweat equity into making their house look like what they want their house to look like. And one of the things that we can do really easily is put a roof garden on the houses. And when I just mentioned that as an aside in a meeting with Haiti, I made a grown man cry. The head of the diaspora, which is the people who have left Haiti and now live in the United States, but they pretty much fund Haiti, made the head of diaspora cry over the concept of us putting roof gardens on our houses because they have deforested 98% of that country and people need food. And to us, it was like this, not stupidest idea, but an afterthought to put a roof garden on and really easy to do. And it's huge for them. So suddenly then, that kind of shifts our world, like saying, okay, what else do you want the houses to have? Like, what else is really important for you? And so that drives business plan, a lot of strategy for me, and then we have to put the business plan behind it.